It says here you work as a wedding singer.
I was.
How many ended in divorce? I don't mean to be unkind, but you have one of the worst singing voices possibly in Miami.
Yeah.
I can do this. I know I can.
No, you can't. You have one of the worst voices I've ever heard in my life.
Simon Cowell, the creator of The X Factor, mastermind behind Got Talent, the man who discovered One Direction, and Leona Lewis, and the face of American Idol's golden age. A billion-dollar TV empire, hundreds of chart-topping hits, a seat of judgment that ruled over pop culture itself. For 2 decades, Simon Cowell felt untouchable part kingmaker, part cultural metronome. He wasn't just a TV judge, he was the assembly line of modern fame. The man who could turn a Tuesday night audition into a world tour. His brand was controlled, his currency was taste, his arena was prime time. But perfection on television is an illusion built on edits, angles, and applause. Offstage, the world is less forgiving. How did it all go so wrong? What makes even the biggest judge of talent shows fall? Simon Cowell's empire didn't start with success. It started with failure. Before he became the most powerful man in television, he was a young man with a famous last name and no direction. Born in 1959 in Hertfordshire, England, Cowell grew up under the influence of his father, Eric Cowell, an executive at EMI Music Publishing. That connection got him his first job, in the mailroom of EMI. But it was hardly glamorous, sorting papers for people who made real decisions. He learned 2 things: power mattered more than talent, and control meant survival. When he saw his father forced into early retirement after years of loyalty, the lesson hit harder. Cowell would later say it broke his heart. But it also defined his ambition never depend on anyone else again. In the mid-1980s, he struck out on his own, co-founding Fanfare Records. For a brief moment, it worked. The label scored a hit in 1986 with Sunita's So Macho, and Cowell tasted success money, cars, recognition. Then, in 1989, the company collapsed. At 30, he was nearly bankrupt, his Porsche repossessed, forced to move back in with his parents. It was a humiliation, but one that cleared his vision. Cowell rebuilt from the ground up, taking a lower-level role as an A&R consultant at BMG. There, he started experimenting. Instead of searching for great artists, he found ways to turn existing pop culture into profit Power Rangers, WWF wrestlers, Teletubbies. It was cheap, clever, and it worked. But his real breakthrough came in 1995 when he watched Soldier Soldier and saw 2 actors, Robson Green and Jerome Flynn, sing Unchained Melody. He persuaded them to record it.
Oh, my love, my darling.
The single topped the UK charts for 7 weeks and became the best-selling single of the year. That project revealed his genius. He didn't sell songs, he sold moments people already loved. It was the prototype for Pop Idol, The X Factor, and the global fame factory to come. By the early 2000s, Simon Cowell had found the perfect formula and he was ready to scale it to the world. What began as a clever business insight had evolved into a cultural machine. He wasn't just making stars anymore, he was manufacturing modern myth. His big swing came in 2001 with Pop Idol, a televised singing competition that let the public vote for their favorite. The format was deceptively simple ordinary people, a stage, a dream. But it was Cowell's presence that turned it into an event. The crisp white shirt, the unflinching stare, the cutting honesty, he became Mr. Nasty, television's most lovable villain. For the first time, the villain was the star. Then came the real jackpot, American Idol. Launched in 2002, it exploded across the United States, averaging over 30 million viewers and turning contestants like Kelly Clarkson and Carrie Underwood into global icons. The show wasn't just entertainment, it was appointment television, the place where dreams lived or died in prime time. Cowell had cracked the code merged storytelling, audience participation, and music sales into one unstoppable loop. But he wanted more control. In 2004, he launched The X Factor in the UK, his own format, his own rules. It was a hybrid of competition, and mentorship judges became coaches, pitting their teams against each other. The show was a phenomenon, spawning global versions in more than 50 countries. 2 years later, Got Talent widened the gates even further. Anyone, from singers to magicians to dancers, could have their shot. It became the most successful reality format in the world, broadcast in over 190 territories. At the center of it all was Cowell, the man who turned judgment into empire. His company, Psycho Entertainment, linked everything: the shows, the artists, the record deals. He didn't just find stars, he owned the entire supply chain. One Direction, Leona Lewis, Susan Boyle. Each was proof that Cowell had mastered the alchemy of fame. For nearly a decade, he wasn't just part of pop culture, he was pop culture. Every yes, every eye roll, every smirk became part of a global script he'd written himself. Simon Cowell didn't chase the spotlight, he built it. Every empire eventually faces its reckoning. For Simon Cowell, it didn't arrive with a single scandal or a public feud, it crept in slowly, disguised as routine. The ratings dipped. The contestants felt less authentic. The same formula that once guaranteed success began to feel mechanical. And for the first time, the man who built the world's biggest fame machine seemed out of touch with the world he'd created. By 2010, The X Factor was untouchable. 17 million people watched the finale that launched One Direction. But that was the peak. From then on, every year looked a little smaller, a little duller. By 2018, the finale had barely 5 million viewers. The show hadn't just aged, the culture around it had moved on. A generation raised on YouTube and TikTok no longer needed Cowell to crown the next star, they could do it themselves. Rivals like The Voice offered something Cowell never did: kindness. The feel-good tone, the focus on artistry instead of humiliation, was the antithesis of his brand. And for once, optimism won. By 2021, The X Factor was quietly canceled. The empire had gone dark. But the deeper cracks weren't just in the ratings, they were on his own face. Around 2020, as Cowell recovered from a near-fatal e-bike accident that broke his back, his public appearances sparked confusion. By 2022, fans were stunned. The once sharp, expressive face familiar from 2 decades of television looked swollen, frozen, almost unrecognizable. Memes flooded social media. Headlines called him wax-like, and late-night hosts turned it into a punchline. The man who'd made a career judging others now found himself judged for the most human insecurity of all: aging. Reports surfaced that Cowell had been relying on fillers and Botox for years to maintain his on-camera image. The reaction was brutal. At the Britain's Got Talent launch in early 2022, photos of his altered face went viral overnight. Not long after, he admitted he had gone too far. In a rare moment of candor, he confessed he had dissolved the fillers after his son, Eric, told him he looked scary. It was poetic, almost cruelly so. The man who built an empire on perfect presentation, on editing and control, had lost control of his own reflection. The face that once embodied authority became a public cautionary tale. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, contestants and former protégés continued to expose the darker side of his empire claims of overwork, manipulation, and psychological pressure. Former stars like Jedward and Rebecca Ferguson accused the system of treating artists like products. Cowell, once the unchallenged arbiter of taste, now stood as a symbol of everything outdated in the entertainment industry: ruthless, commodified, and disconnected. By 2020, his record label Psycho Music quietly shut down. By 2022, even his body and face, the last symbols of control, had turned against him. For 2 decades, Simon Cowell decided who was worthy of fame. Now, for the first time, he became the story everyone else dissected, memed, and mocked. The King of Judgment had become its victim. After decades spent defining other people's stories, Simon Cowell was forced to face his own. When the cameras stopped rolling, when the empire crumbled, and when his body literally broke, he had to answer a question no critic could ask for him: who was Simon Cowell without the power? The answer didn't come through television, it came through survival. His near-fatal bike accident in 2020 left him with a broken back and metal rods in his spine. For months, he couldn't walk. In interviews, he admitted he'd been millimeters from paralysis. The man who built a career on control had lost it entirely over his body, his image, his future. And yet, somehow, he returned. He called it a wake-up call. He stopped drinking, changed his diet, and threw himself into recovery. The tone that once defined him, sharp, smug, untouchable, softened. For the first time, Simon Cowell sounded human. Fatherhood deepened that change. His son, Eric, born in 2014, became the emotional anchor of this new chapter. Cowell often credits him with saving his life literally and figuratively. In one interview, he recalled Eric seeing the metal rods in his back and calling him Iron Man. It was a moment both tender and ironic. The man once cast as TV's villain was being reimagined as a superhero in the eyes of his child. Still, the public wasn't entirely forgiving. Around 2022, Cowell's drastically altered face, tight, swollen, unrecognizable, sparked a wave of online ridicule. Memes flooded social media. The man who had judged thousands for their appearances was now being judged for his own. It was cruel symmetry. Yet, even in that humiliation, Cowell found humility. He later confessed, "I went too far. I looked like something out of a horror movie." He reportedly had his fillers dissolved, a literal and symbolic act of peeling back the mask. Professionally, he began again smaller, humbler. After The X Factor was axed, he focused on America's Got Talent, where his tone grew noticeably warmer. The biting critiques became mentoring moments. He even ventured into new projects, like Walk the Line and a Netflix documentary about forming a new boy band, proof that he still believed in the power of a good story, just told differently. The irony of Cowell's redemption arc is that it mirrors the very narratives he once sold to the world: the comeback, the transformation, the triumph over failure. But this time, there were no scripts, no edits, no commercial breaks, just an aging mogul learning to live with the imperfections of being human. Was it genuine remorse or brand reinvention? In the fame business, the line is blurry. But for Simon Cowell, whose legacy is built on packaging emotion for consumption, maybe this was the most honest chapter yet. A man learning, finally, that the greatest show doesn't happen under the spotlight, it happens when the lights go out. Simon Cowell's story is a paradox: a man who built fame like a factory, only to be crushed by its machinery. He turned judgment into entertainment, vulnerability into ratings, and ordinary people into global stars. But in chasing perfection, he became its prisoner. The empire that once amplified his voice eventually echoed back every flaw. His legacy is both brilliance and warning. He democratized stardom, yet also commodified it. He gave millions a dream and millions more a spectacle. And in the end, the same audience that once crowned him king watched his downfall with the same fascination. Cowell's rise and fall reveal a universal truth about the fame industry control is an illusion. And every brand, no matter how powerful, is built on borrowed love. In fame, the applause always fades. The real question is, who are you when it does?